Do you remember the opening scene in Pretty Woman? And there's this man walking down the street and he's full of life. And he's like, what's your name? What's your name? Everybody got a name. What's your name? My name is Jacqueline Ann Poorter. I was born Jacqueline Ann Cavalheiro. And over the course of my life, I have been struggling with my name. I love my name. But just today, I walked into a room and 4 different people who met me for the first time assumed my name, or that the name I identify with or go by, was Jackie. So I'm curious, when I say, hi, I'm Jacqueline, nice to meet you, what in people's heads makes them automatically jump to this new name that they wish to give me, this almost like we're friends? You know, we're merely acquaintances, but what makes them have the right or the audacity or the nerve or even the logic to assume that when I say, hi, I'm Jacqueline, nice to meet you, that they can call me Jackie? And then it got me thinking. There's a girl in my youngest daughter's kindergarten class, and there's 2 girls in the class with the same name. And, you know, one is Addison S and one is Addison R. And my daughter Ella, who is very goal-oriented and very rule-abiding, and so if the teacher calls her friend Addison S, she says, hey, Addison S, Addison S. And I'm like, honey, it's just Addison to you. Like, it's Addison S and Addison R to the teacher because they're taking attendance. But to you, it's okay to just be Addison. And I asked Addison the other day, I said, Addison, you know, and even her mom said, she goes, she doesn't like it when everyone says Addison S. And so I told Ella, and she goes, but mommy, that's her name. And it just got me thinking on the power of a name and the power of that one person who calls you something, what it has to do as our names are heard through time. I know in elementary school, my parents got divorced, and back in the 80s and early 90s, you had to go, in the Catholic board at least, you had to go to therapy. And there was a woman at the school, Mrs. Rutherford. I don't know what you're doing now, Mrs. Rutherford. I hope you're well. And she would always knock on the door and say, hello, is Jackie there? It's time to talk. And no one in my life up until that point had called me Jackie. I was 7.5 years old. Not my friends, not my family, no one. And Mrs. Rutherford, out of nowhere, when I'm going through trauma of my parents getting divorced, I had just got glasses. I'm 7.5, like I'm almost 8. I don't know what's happening. I'm moving here, moving there. And she calls me Jackie. And I always, you know, remember that time and her voice with that period that was happening in my life. Flash forward years later, I'm in high school and I was doing the morning sports announcements. And Mrs. Newton, love her to pieces, wonder what she's doing now. This is all my baggage, guys. This is name baggage, but I want to know yours. Please drop a comment below. I would love to know your name baggage. Not Mrs. Newton. Mrs. Newton was my elementary school teacher. Mrs. Naden. You know, she would say, it's Jackie with morning sports. And I was okay with it in that context when I was doing the morning sports announcements. But I had a friend, Newton. This is like full circle, Mrs. Newton and Newton, not related. I had a friend, Newton, and he would come to my soccer games. His dad was actually one of my soccer coaches, and he would call me Jax, J-A-X. And up until that point, I had got Jacqueline, and I had got Jay from my oldest, dearest friend who I've known since I was 3. And I hadn't had anything else. I'd get Jacqueline or Jay, and my brother would call me Jack. And then Newton started calling me Jax, J-A-X, and that stuck. And I loved it. Even now on my women's football team, people call me Jax. When I went to university, that was the nickname that I gave. But we talked about it. You know, he asked if I liked it, just like my girlfriend who I've known since I was 3. He said, hey, Jay, you know, are you okay with Jay? Or like when my brother called me Jack. It's about having these conversations. And, you know, I look at this little girl, Addison S, as they call her in school, who had the courage to tell her mommy that she doesn't like it when they say Addison S. She just wants Addison. And so I am wondering who else out there is called something different from their name without people asking, with people just assuming it's okay, or people thinking that they have a right as a friend. You know, circling back to that Pretty Woman, what's your name? What's your name? Everybody's got a name. We have a name. We all have a name. But you need to ask what someone is comfortable with being called or how they want to identify. It's important. I think so. See you next time.